Hare Krishna. Welcome back, everyone. This your host, Vidyananda Das from Korea. It's almost 9:40 a.m. here and many other different times all around the world. We are continuing our reading of Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is. I've been practicing the invocation mantras, getting them actually perfect. This is why I only do one or two and not all more of them, because I want to actually pronounce them correctly. So here we go. First, the one we all know. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. All right, and now I'll try just the first one, getting all the long vowels correctly without looking at it. Here we go. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I think I actually missed one. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. That second time, I hope you could hear me stressing the long vowels. You have to say them long. That's why they're indicated to be long, because they are long. One more time. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Beautiful. So we are on chapter 5, verse 5, and we're going till the end of verse 9. Next time we'll continue with verse 10, and next time will be our 34th live stream. So it'll take us more than 100, it seems, to complete the Bhagavad Gita. Fine with me. This is the bee's knees, as we don't really say anymore in English. At least no one my age or younger still says that, I don't think. Verse 5, one who knows that the position reached by means of renunciation can also be attained by works in devotional service, and who therefore sees that the path of works and the path of renunciation are one, sees things as they are. My notes, I wrote, both paths lead to the same end. This is true sight. And this is also review. We talked about this last time. This has already come up. This was the second verse of the chapter, I believe, where the first verse Krishna says, so tell me, Krishna, which one is it? This one or that one? And Krishna says, you can do both, but this one is definitely better. So the answer's already been given to this. The ultimate answer to this whole chapter has already been given to us. So the rest of this chapter is elaboration, explanation, examples, and so on. In the end of the purport, Prabhupada mentions how while both paths do ultimately lead to the same end, one appears like attachment and the other appears like detachment. But really, they're both the same, and that's just like an external manifestation of something that's happening at a more subtle level, which is actually important. And that external stuff is just how it happens. What I mean, for example, I'm reading from Prabhupada. Quote, factually, both processes are the same, although superficially, one process appears to involve detachment and the other process appears to involve attachment. However, detachment from matter and attachment to Krishna are one and the same. One who can see this sees things as they are. And that's where I was getting the word true sight in the beginning. Moving on. Unless there's some Sanskrit to play around with. Not so much, but that'll be coming up soon. Verse 6. Wait. Yep, verse 6. Unless one is engaged in the devotional service of the Lord, mere renunciation of activities cannot make one happy. The sages, purified by works of devotion, achieve the supreme without delay. Now reading from my notes. Mere renunciation works. This is a confusing thing. So in the verse it says renunciation of works, but works in English also means something can work well. So that's how I mean it here. Like mere renunciation, just doing that as a method or technique or lifestyle, it does work, but that alone does not make one happy. I'm just restating the verse there. Why is devotion better? Because it works faster and makes us blissful. Those are my only notes from this verse. In the purport, Prabhupada talks about Mayavadi sannyasis versus Vaishnav sannyasis. And he's talking about studies of Sankhya and Vedanta even, and speculation. All of this is, you can get advanced knowledge and truth this way, but you, quote, cannot relish transcendental service of the Lord. Because their studies become very tedious, they sometimes become tired of Brahman speculation, and thus they take shelter of the Bhagavatam without proper understanding. Consequently, their study of the Srimad Bhagavatam becomes troublesome. Dry speculations and impersonal interpretations by artificial means are all useless for the Mayavadi sannyasis. The Vaishnava sannyasis who are engaged in devotional service are happy in the discharge of their transcendental duties, and they have the guarantee of ultimate entrance into the kingdom of God, unquote. And in the very last sentence, Prabhupada mentions that it is true that the sannyasis engaged in simple Brahman speculation, they too will come to Krishna consciousness after many births. So that's the difference. Do you want to take many more births, or do you want to finish it all in this lifetime? As for me, I don't want to take more births, but I will if I need to. I'm ready to accept that fate. That's the main thing I've been working on for a while, is just being ready to accept that my devotional service just didn't quite cut it in this life, and I'm going to have to try again next time. It's just something I'm trying to accept myself, regardless of if it's true or not. Thought today with my door closed here, this background is totally fine actually in my apartment, but the only reason it really comes in handy when I want to show something on the book and then there's no glitching, but I don't think I'm going to be showing anything. So let's go back to Krishna. Yeah. Krishna's a good background. Okay, verse 7. One who works in devotion, who is a pure soul, and who controls his mind and senses, is dear to everyone, and everyone is dear to him. Though always working, such a man is never entangled. And this is where we get some interesting Sanskrit words. Yoga yukto vishuddhatma. That's the first line there. Yoga yukto. That's really funny for me. Interesting, funny. So it's the same word, basically, repeated twice, but how they combine is very interesting. So yoga means the thing that we're doing, which in this case means like karma yoga, like devotional service is literally how Prabhupada translates it. And then yukta means being engaged in doing that yoga. So it means basically a yogi doing yoga. That's yoga yukto here. Or as the literal translation is one who works in devotion. And then Vishuddha Atma, a purified soul. So Atma, soul, Vishuddha, purified. I'm guessing that's similar to Siddha. Like Siddhanta is like perfection, like complete perfection, something like that. And Vishuddha is like purified. I don't know what V means. V is probably a very important prefix I should learn, and it probably means the same thing in Vishnu. Must study more. Maybe it's in the back of the book. Could it be in the index or the glossary? I don't think there is a glossary. Oh, no, there is the glossary. So there's a glossary and a general index and an index of Sanskrit verses. This is why this is the best Gita ever. It's got literally everything you need. Yeah, I was right. There's many words with V, but it doesn't actually mention what V alone means. Might be able to figure it out. Like Vijnanam, we know what jnana means. That just means knowledge. But Vijnanam means specific knowledge of spirit soul. His constitutional position and his relationship with the Supreme Soul. So Vijnanam might mean like spiritual knowledge, as opposed to just jnanam knowledge. Vikarma, oh, that's a common one. Unauthorized or sinful work performed against the injunctions of revealed scriptures. So V in that word means like against or unauthorized, but that's not the same as a karma, which also means against. All right, I'm going to the index now. The index is in English, so that probably won't help us. Let's see. There's not that many V words, though. Actually, there are. That was a stupid thing to say. So many VIs. So many. Vibhu Atma means as one of two kinds of souls. So Bhu here means like jiva, like a creature, and Atma means soul. Vibhu, I'm so close. So close, guys. Ah. All right, we can also check the Sanskrit English Cognate Encyclopedia on my website, ethosananda.com/blog. And just scroll down a little bit. I don't do that many posts, so it's on here. And just scroll down to V. Yeah, and he mentions Vibhuti and Vyasa. Oh, so V can be VI or VY. I was so close. I think I could have figured it out from keep reading these. But anyway, it means the opposite of sam, which means together, like sankirtan, samadhi. So SAM or SYN in English, like synthetic, synthesis, all those syncopation, all those words mean coming together. This comes with this together. V means away or separating or expanding. So Atma means soul, and then Bhu is like a creature soul, and Vibhu then means like there's now two kinds of creature souls. So Atma is the one soul, then Bhu Atma is like, okay, now it's like a lesser soul, and then Vibhu Atma means, okay, now we're showing that there's two different kinds of souls. So that's how V can work in there. And then now a harder one is V karma. Sinful work. Work that is separating us from the essence of work, maybe. So, like, if pure karma is a good thing, then V karma is a bad thing because it's going against, it's going away, it's separating from pure karma. Vishnu has so many meanings. Okay, let us move on. My gosh. Oh, yeah. So this is Sanskrit for you, though. Okay, so a pure soul, we're on verse 7 here, the first line of verse 7 in Sanskrit. Yoga yukta vishuddhatma. A pure soul engaged in yoga is not just linked to God, he is linked to bhutas, the jivas. And they are dear to him too. And such a yogatma, that's a word I made up, I think it's right. Such a yogatma is never entangled. Such a soul engaged in yoga, a yogatma, I hope that's right, is never entangled. So I think this corresponds to the very common metaphor Prabhupada uses, and it might even be, it's in the first paragraph of the purport here. Just as the leaves and branches of a tree are not separate from the tree, he knows very well that by pouring water on the root of the tree, the water will be distributed to all the leaves and branches. So, because God is the root of everything, if you're good with God, you're good with everything and everyone. And even better than that, the last sentence of the verse, you're never entangled either. Although you're always working, always doing different things, you're never going to get entangled. From my own personal life, I've experienced this where there are things that are almost going to entangle me. I see it coming, and sometimes desire, lust, or envy, whatever it is, and I'll see it coming, And, I'll see my own reaction to it, like, ooh, yummy, whatever. But I don't actually do it. Or if I do it, I'm not attached to it. So maybe there's some suffering, in the short term. But in the long term, I just kind of go back to Krishna, But I don't want to get arrogant. So I still want to keep practicing. The idea that this may not be my last life here. And one thing that's interesting to meditate on is even if, okay, well, there are verses that refute this, but I know anything's possible. So what if I go back home, back to Godhead after this lifetime? And, I have a few eternities there with Krishna, 1, 2, 3 eternities, something like that. And I get bored again, and I want to come back down here again. Maybe, right? I know there's a specific verse that says, no, once you go back, you stay back. But, I mean, so then I probably shouldn't be thinking that then, right? It really just depends how hungry you are to serve others. I heard a Prabhupada quote recently. It was a Prabhupada disciple who was, sharing the story of being next to Prabhupada when he said this, that when he's done preaching here, he's going to go to Pita Loka. He's going to go to the hellish planet to continue preaching. So, and I believe that I've also heard similar stories of Lord Christ who, near-death experiences. There's one guy who went down to hell. He was literally in the depths of hell. And then Jesus was there and brought him back up. So the greatest souls are doing lots of exploring within this material world too. And then the clock strikes 10, exactly 1 o'clock. They're doing, or not 1 o'clock, but the number 1 just turned exactly on 5/12/2024. And it just turned 9. Interesting. So yes, the Mahatmas and higher, they're traveling the material world because in one hand, it's kind of like why the demigods want to have a human birth, right? Because there's so much juiciness here to taste. But for the even greater souls, I don't want to insult any of the demigods, but guys like Prabhupada and Christ, they really want to help and serve others. And it's a gamble. It's a gamble because they'll kill you. They'll kill you for doing it, especially when you're good at it. And then they get really good at it, and then they, go down lower and lower and lower, and it's still a gamble, But if you maintain the purity, then it's greater glory to God to save the lower and lower and lower creatures and the lower and lower planets. I get nauseous thinking about this. On the one hand, I'm glorifying as much as I can, and on the other hand, I'm thinking the next natural thought is, oh, what can I do? But it's like, no. I can barely do anything here. I teach kindergarten because it's easy in a sense. Spiritually, I do it because it's easy. Most people would think teaching kindergarten is hard, and it is in a material sense, but in a spiritual sense, it's easier. These kids at this age are very much alive in the moment, and sometimes they're teaching me how to do that. And they have an instinctual understanding of ethics. I don't have to teach them ethics in a not so much in a logical. Their conscience is very much there Um, and they just need guidance. They just need training and guidance so that they're, not instinctual, but they're conditioned response of, no, I didn't do it. It's like, are you lying to me? And I have to keep telling them over again, it's okay if you make a mistake, it's okay, but you can't lie to me. Just tell me what happened and I'll love you. I'll take care of you. For these kids, it's really hard. These are very rich Korean kids. And I don't want to say anything bad about the culture here, or the people or anything like that, because I moved here because it's a good culture. It's far more advanced than most other ones. But it doesn't mean there aren't very serious problems, horrible conditioning. Mostly the thing is the people here just work too hard. Even the rich people who don't have to work too hard, they still just have this habit. They keep on working so hard, they forget to parent their kids. And I have to be teacher and parent. But my boss says, no, 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 you got to finish this book and then that book, and you got to do this activity, this exercise. The curriculum has to be done because it's an English school. And, so we just have so much work to do. And where's the place of the children in all this? They're just like, oh, I just want to be happy. I just want to be peaceful and happy. So, I just want to do whatever I can to get the adults off my back so I can be happy. And it's quicker to just say, no, no, I didn't do it. Or, I have one student who just, has this sad puppy face he does as soon as there's the slightest problem. And obviously it works great with his parents. And they go, oh, yeah, yeah, baby, of course. Oh, but, I'm a teacher. I have to do what they can't do, I guess. And I've been preaching vegetarianism all the time to everyone around here. That's my fight. That's the battle. That's the battleground I've decided to really hanker in on. I can't really. It's not practical to promote a initiated devotee kind of lifestyle here. That's a full-time job, and it totally works. But you have to quit your job, really, to really make it. Especially in Korea, if you want to do 16 rounds, do the 4 regulative principles. You want to do that perfectly. You have to quit. You have to seriously change your social life, change your job, maybe. Like there has to be a big change. For me, I'm barely able to make it work. And I'm doing low quality chanting. I'm chanting mantras all over the place all the time, just to barely make it in. I'm talking so much. Sometimes losing my voice. Also, because I'm a foreign teacher, my workload is not quite as bad as the Korean teachers at my school, at most schools. But it's not a light workload either. I'm full time 9 to 6, 9 to 5:30 every single day. And I get some breaks in the middle of the day, but some half of, like, if I get a 40-minute break, sometimes half of it is like stuff I got to do to prepare for the next thing. Anyway, moving on. This is all purely academic, of course. So reading further from my notes in verse 7 here, the ultimate example of not being entangled is the last section of the purport. On the battlefield of Kurukshetra, with even all that killing and death around us, this is the most extreme kind of activity, karma, that you can even imagine, right? Where if anyone's going to get attached or forget about Krishna, it's going to be like this when you surrounded by death and blood and gore and all that stuff. But what actually happened? Well, Prabhupada says basically Arjuna was not even fighting. He was simply carrying out the orders. Now I'm reading from Prabhupada here. Arjuna was only superficially offensive because, as has already been explained in the second chapter, all the assembled persons on the battlefield would continue to live individually, as the soul cannot be slain. So, spiritually, no one was killed on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Only their dresses were changed by the order of Krishna, who was personally present. Therefore, Arjuna, while fighting on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, was not really fighting at all. He was simply carrying out the orders of Krishna in full Krishna consciousness. Such a person is never entangled in the reactions of work. Beautiful. And to the purport, I mean, that last line of the purport corresponds perfectly to the last line of the verse. Na lipyate, never entangled. And then that last line of the purport leads perfectly to this next verse, which is verse 8 and 9 combined. I'll just read my notes first because it's already in front of me. One in yukta may do all sorts of external things, but one knows within himself that he's actually doing nothing at all. It's just the senses doing their thing, i.e., machines being machines. He is not it. Thus, he is aloof. Little pronoun wordplay there, which works well in English, but not always in other languages. But yes, it is very important to note that when you have these languages where he or she correspond to persons and souls, and it is used specifically for things that are dead, you get a clear picture of what's going on here. Okay, verses 8 and 9. Sri Bhagavan Vacha. It doesn't say that in the verse, but that's what we're reading here. Quote, a person in the divine consciousness, although engaged in seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, eating, moving about, sleeping, and breathing, always knows within himself that he actually does nothing at all. Because while speaking, evacuating, receiving, opening, or closing his eyes, he always knows that only the material senses are engaged with their objects and that he is aloof from them. That was verse 8 and 9. Very short purport here. I'll just read the purport. A person in Krishna consciousness is pure in his existence, and consequently he has nothing to do with any work which depends upon 5 immediate and remote causes: the doer, the work, the situation, the endeavor, and fortune. That's a big key here. That's a big daily practice we can use is ask yourself, am I the doer? Am I the work? Am I the situation? Am I the endeavor? Am I fortune? Am I looking to be any of these things? And then the more you answer yes to that question, that's where you need to work on, because that's not the actual truth. When you're purely engaged and you have pure consciousness, these things happen. There are doers and work and situations, and there's fortune and lack of fortune. This is all there, but we're not part of that. It's just like the senses being engaged, doing their thing. It's one example of, a beautiful woman walked by on a morning walk, and Prabhupada said, oh, she's a beautiful woman. This is a natural thing. Your eyes just kind of see what they see. And when you see beauty, you're allowed to say, oh, that's beauty. The problem is when you go, and of course I still do this myself, oh yeah, I'm going to get me some of that. That's different. That's called lust. Continuing on in the purport. This is because he is engaged in the loving transcendental service of Krishna. Although he appears to be acting with his body and senses, he is always conscious of his actual position, which is spiritual engagement. In material consciousness, the senses are engaged in sense gratification, but in Krishna consciousness, the senses are engaged in the satisfaction of Krishna's senses. Therefore, well, that's another perfect thing for us to work on. For me, particular, thinking not because Krishna's big. Krishna's this big, beyond imaginable idea of a person who is like, what? But Krishna's senses, that's something we can hold on to. That's something you can meditate on instead of doing something for Krishna and Krishna's everywhere. And, there's some part of Krishna who will accept my little bad offering, whatever. But if you say, if you're preparing flowers or something visual, you can think, well, you can focus just on Krishna's eyes, Will Krishna's eyes really like this? And so on. Therefore, the Krishna conscious person is always free, even though he appears to be engaged in things of the senses. Activities such as seeing, hearing, speaking, evacuating, etc., are actions of the senses meant for work. A Krishna consciousness person, I wonder if that's an English mistake or not. Not that it doesn't make a big difference in meaning if you say a Krishna conscious person or a Krishna consciousness person. It means the same thing. I'm just curious. Is never affected by the actions of the senses. He cannot perform any act except in the service of the Lord because he knows that he is the eternal servitor of the Lord. That's a strong last sentence there. Cannot. I have a intuition that Prabhupada is talking about himself right here in this last sentence. And not in an arrogant way, but perhaps even in a reminding kind of way. Like, hey, buddy, you still may have those thoughts, but you cannot perform any act except in the service of the Lord because you know, buddy, talking to the self, that you're the eternal servitor. You know that. Don't be playing around like you don't know that because you know that. And it works for me too. When I say that, like I'm saying it to myself, like it really works. That's why this is the bee's knees. This Bhagavad Gita is the best of the best. You just read it. That's all you need to do. You just read it and think about it. And it will work. One thing that does not work is when you read it as a religious artifact. We must say the mantras. We repeat the mantras. We do not think about it. We repeat the mantras until it works. Yeah, I mean, that can work, but I really don't recommend that. Sorry, guys. Sorry to all the Hindus out there and all the fanatics and anyone else. It's like, no, please don't do that. You have a brain. You have a human intelligence. I think you should use it. I don't think that's asking or demanding or expecting too much from me to you guys. Just think about it, But at the same time, there is a balance here. If you think too much, if you don't want to speculate and you don't want to think too much to the point where you're in constant doubt and skepticism of everything, no, don't do that. But you have to think. And by the way, if you actually read it properly from the introduction, where Prabhupada tells you in the introduction, before you even begin at chapter 1, how to read the book correctly, if you do it correctly, there will be great benefit, and very quickly too. But most people are not actually doing that. That's one reason why I'm still doing this. Also worthy to note is that this will, I believe, be my first or second Sunday that I'm not going to a worship service here in Korea, because I'm here with you guys instead. And to be honest, I might actually do it like this from now on. This keeps me in the service attitude. When I go to these churches, or even last weekend I went to ISKCON, the first ISKCON I've been to in Korea. There's only 2 ISKCONs I know of. One in Gimhae, which is near Busan. That's where I went last weekend, and another in Seoul. It's not really in Seoul. It's on the outskirts of Seoul, north of Seoul. And Seoul is way north from me, so it's going to be real hard to get there on the weekend. Not hard. It's just a long trip. Even on the fastest, most expensive bullet train, it still might be 2 hours minimum. From my apartment, absolute minimum of 2 hours to get to that temple. Probably like 3 or 4 though, minimum. And then got to find some place to stay. Yeah, it could work. I could make a weekend out of that. But I had a 3-day weekend last weekend for Children's Day, so that's why with that extra day, I figured I'd go on a journey. It was great, but still, there's always, it's so easy for me in a worship service to go into the enjoyer mode. When's prasadam coming, and is this kirtan good or not? And it's so, unless I'm leading a kirtan, leading a class, I'm just naturally thinking. I go way too quick into the enjoyer mode, and I'm not having that problem right now. I'm not even conscious of if I'm enjoying this or not, because I'm just speaking, and I have to keep doing that dharma as best I can, which involves many things, such as not going too long. We're at 42 minutes right now. That's like probably long enough, maybe too long. So that'll be it. I hope to see you all every single Sunday until I leave Korea, until something changes. That should do it for everyone involved. It'd be really cool if I could say I live streamed the entire Bhagavad Gita as it is, 1972 Deluxe Edition. Hari Bol. Jai Shri Krishna. Jai Shri Bhagavan, Jai Shri Krishna, Jai Shri Krishna, Jai Shri Vaishnava, Jai Shri Vaishnavi. See you next time. Peace.